Hello, everyone. Hello, it's Jimmy Nguyen. I'm founding president of Bitcoin Association. Hope you are all well and safe from wherever you are. And I want to welcome you to our first virtual meetup for BSV supporters and enthusiasts around the world. This time focused on the EMEA, Europe, Middle East, Africa time zone and region. And I'm so excited to be able to talk to you today. It's the start of a new year, although now it's February, if you can believe it already. And what I want to do today is give a few updates on what's going on across the Bitcoin SV ecosystem. And then we're going to have some guests come on to talk to us about a number of things. So I see Michael Hudson there. Hey, Michael, how are you doing?
Hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, exciting. So before we get to Michael and some of our other guests, let me tell you about what's some things I think people out there who are interested in BSV will want to know. First of all, let's just talk about where we are with Bitcoin SV. It's been a little over 2 years now since the split between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. And as I go around the world talking to people, now virtually, one of the things I explain is we spent the last 2 years really focused on building the technical infrastructure, establishing scaling power, and also building out the business ecosystem and starting to build out partnerships and opportunities for the businesses that are building on Bitcoin SV. And now we're at the point where I think it's critical for us as an ecosystem to focus on continuing that building, and in this year, really drive more transactions on chain, especially for significant business use cases that we're seeing across the world. So I want to make a few announcements as that relate to this. So we're focused very much this year on a number of things, which is a lot more developer education and content, technical training, building more partnerships across the world, both within as well as outside of the digital currency and blockchain industries. So in terms of things that are coming up, tomorrow, actually, our partnership with Saxion University in the Netherlands will result in the launch of its first MOOC, massive open online course focused on Bitcoin and Bitcoin SV. I'll be joining them for the last part of their blockchain week tomorrow to introduce the MOOC, and that will go live. It's free for anyone across the world to use, and Saxion University will be partnering with us to actually help promote that through its network. In addition, we've had a number of new hires in the Bitcoin Association team. We announced earlier this week in China, Aaron Zhu, who's well known as a prolific app developer for Bitcoin SV, has decided to join Bitcoin Association as well as nChain. So we'll be sharing him with Mr. Shadders, who you see over there. Aaron comes to us from IBM, where he was a Java developer and DevOpsec engineer. And I think that's a real sign of how people from significant enterprise experience are not just wanting to play around with BSV to test some applications on their free time, but really want to work in this ecosystem as their full-time career. He'll be our technical outreach specialist in China, working in collaboration with our team, including Brian Doherty, who's our technical outreach specialist that we hired in the North America region, to really focus on educating enterprises about their capabilities if they can use the Bitcoin SV blockchain. And just today, we announced 2 more hires who started with us actually on Monday. That is Lizette Louw, who you will be hearing from later today. She comes to us from Michael's company. Sorry, Michael, but I know you're happy to have her with us now. Lizette will be a content marketing specialist for us, working on creating more content to educate mainstream and business audiences about BSV. And our other additional team member, Connor Murray, many of you already know, he's the founder of what used to be called True Reviews, now Brightview. He'll be spending part of his time working with our content team that creates the educational content, such as Bitcoin SV Academy, to teach people about Bitcoin and Bitcoin development. We'll be introducing these team members at our virtual meetups. Today, we'll meet Liz. I want to mention a few business developments that I think the industry will want to know, because in my role, I talk to a lot of the companies across the Bitcoin SV global ecosystem. And I've been doing that a lot in the beginning of this year. So I spent a lot of time in January speaking to many of the companies. I'm not done with you all yet, so some of you will get calls from me. I know I already talked with Michael. We have been trying to get a sense of where the companies are headed, what we as an association can do to support them business-wise, media-wise, as well as development-wise. And some have allowed me to say a couple of things. Veridad is a relatively new company that emerged into the Bitcoin SV scene last year at CoinGeek Live. I've known about them for quite some time. You heard about their platform they're creating to help further advance clinical research data integrity by using the Bitcoin SV blockchain to take, for example, research data created by a pharmaceutical company when it's testing, for example, perhaps a COVID vaccine, although that's not the thing they're working on now, but that's a lot in the news. Clinical trials have to be done to satisfy government regulators, and data has to be kept to ensure that data is not altered or changed either intentionally or just negligently without being recorded. Their platform can be used by a pharmaceutical company to ensure better data integrity. Because as we all know, the Bitcoin SV blockchain is an open, transparent, auditable ledger. So it's a great use of the timestamp server concept of blockchain and what is defined in the Bitcoin white paper, not even blockchain. Timestamping records of data to be able to verify later whether the data is correct or whether it's been changed. So they have actually been testing with one of the world's major pharmaceutical companies, use of the platform with that pharma company. I can't name the pharma company now because they're planning to do their own announcements, an unveiling of a significant project. That pharma company, as I understand it, is very pleased with the platform, has been scaling up the project. And I think it's when you find out about it in the coming months, you will see how Bitcoin SV really can serve the great big businesses of the world. In addition, Veridad is exploring already discussions for use of its platform with companies in other industries, any other industry that requires building trust with data. So they have a few other business discussions going on, but expect to hear more about that in coming months. I'm very excited about that, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about it at the next CoinGeek conference. In addition, just moments ago, I saw on Twitter that BitBoss announced an integration that we had been working with them to help push out into media. Their Dragon BSV Casino platform, which has various online casino games, has just completed integration with Dot Wallet, the wallet managed by the team out in China, which has 1 million user downloads of its wallet. And it'll be integrated into the wallet so anyone with Dot Wallet can easily play BitBoss Dragon BSV Casino online games. And finally, another press release that just got issued today comes from Chronoverse. You'll be hearing today from Adam Kling, the CEO and founder of Chronoverse, but it's got a new name now, Fix with a Y, F-Y-X, Fix Gaming. And we'll be talking to him towards the end of this virtual meetup about what Fix is and its role as an infrastructure and technology solutions provider so that other developers, from indie developers all the way up to AAA game studios, can use their platform to integrate and create functionality with the Bitcoin SV blockchain. So that's really exciting. So you can see there's a lot going on. There's a lot more happening across the ecosystem. I'm aware of many business discussions, partnerships that have already happened, things that are in development. And I know sometimes people get anxious, I see it all on your Twitter feeds, about whether or not BSV is developing quickly enough. And I know a lot of that right now is probably driven by anxiety or concern about BSV's price not going up as quickly as the rest of the cryptocurrency market, driven by BTC's very significant price rise over the last few months. And what I'd say to you is that it's not that we don't care about price. Of course, all of people working in this ecosystem believe they're trying to create value. We believe it's important to build real value that lasts organically over time. And so while price is important, we don't say it's not important. As you can see from the companies you'll hear from today, they're all building products and businesses that want to have real long-standing utility. That takes time. And I think that will win over the course of time, and you'll see a lot more happening this year. So with that, I think I'm going to start with Steve. So Michael, you can hang out if you want to hear what Steve has to say. So Steve Shadders, let me introduce Steve. He is, of course, known to all of you in the BSV world as CTO of nChain and also technical director of the Bitcoin SV infrastructure team. So hi, Steve, welcome from wherever you are in the UK now.
I'm in Surrey, and I have a terrible internet connection. So please let me know if I start dropping out, and I'll turn my video off, but I'll leave it on.
Okay.
See, try our luck.
So with Steve today, I want to talk about various things. First of all, we planned this virtual meetup on the 1-year anniversary of the Genesis protocol restoration. And I'm sure you remember it well because it was a heck of a lot of work for you and your team. So this is the 1-year anniversary. How are you feeling about BSV from a technical standpoint since the Genesis hard fork?
Well, the year since Genesis has been a lot more exciting than Genesis itself. You're right. It was a lot of hard work, and we were probably a little bit nervous going in, but it was a complete non-event in terms of anything exciting happening, which is exactly what you want from an upgrade like this. So, so we were pretty pleased about the way that it went, but. What's happened in the last year? People have really been exploring the new capabilities, I guess, of SV. And Genesis was about restoring a lot of the lost functionality of Bitcoin, which has meant that we've been able to spend more of our time focused on the performance and scaling stuff. And that doesn't really affect you unless you start to hit the speed limits. And of course, it's our job to make sure that you never do. But that also gives a lot more kind of creative freedom. What we've seen in the exploration of the script space has been nothing short of astonishing. I talked about this at CoinGeek February last year. And I said at the time that there was a new profession about to be born, which was the Bitcoin script engineer, and that there weren't any of them yet. A couple of people pulled me up after that and said maybe that I'd missed a couple of candidates, but there's been an explosion in this area of people experimenting with a style of programming that is really not that easy, to be honest. So I'm really impressed with the amount of raw talent that's actually around and working with this stuff. The other thing, of course, I guess one of those scaling limits that we've just recently been able to address, the long chains of transactions. Again, it has that feel of when the opera term limit was lifted. You can just you can sense all of these ideas that people have had that they haven't been able to use before. That now they've got the tools and the motivation to actually do it. So a lot's been happening over this last year, and yeah, a lot more to come.
Got it. And for those of you who are joining us, I'm talking with Steve Shadders. You don't see his face because his internet connection is not the best where he is now. There is a Q&A function in our platform, so you can type in questions in Q&A mode, and after each of our guest speakers, we'll be taking some questions. Steve, so you mentioned the recent lifting of the ancestor limit to increase the length potential of chain transactions. That's in version 1.0.7 of the Bitcoin SV node software, which was released in beta last month, and just the formal public release just recently. Can you explain for our audience who may be less aware of what that means, what the impact of that is, and why that's important for the more high-level business applications that may be generated, in addition to the consumer applications that a lot of the startup entrepreneurs in our space are creating?
Yeah, so just a quick correction, the production release is due in February. It hasn't actually been released yet. And it will take a little bit of time for that new functionality to roll out, I guess, across the network. And in the meantime, what I recommend people do is focus on submitting transactions directly to miners that they know have already updated in order to be able to make use of those. But over time, as the whole network upgrades to 1.07, you'll be able to just blast transactions from anywhere. In terms of use cases for it, well, one thing that that Bitcoin is really good at doing is being an ordered record of events. In fact, that's actually how I usually describe Bitcoin. And payments obviously is a key focus of it because peer-to-peer cash is in the title of the white paper. But if you think about it, that's a specific type of event. And what it does that no one else has ever been able, or a problem no one else has ever been able to solve before, is it finds a way to prove the order that events happen in, and that's very important for a payment use case. But you know, anything that involves being able to audit the order of events of kind of anything can benefit from these long chains, because the chains of transactions themselves are what represent that really important property. So a lot of use cases along those lines have been a little bit held back by having a limit as small as 25, because that meant that, you know, you can probably only record an event every 10-20 seconds, or 20-ish roughly seconds. Now you can kind of record an event in a single sequence of events more than once a second. And of course, we actually don't see any technical impediment to removing that limit altogether. It actually even makes less work for us, because we don't have to track it. So people should really start thinking about applications that might make use of 100,000 long chains, or even longer, because that will certainly be possible in the not too distant future.
Yeah. You know, at the last CoinGeek conference, the BitBoss guys delivered a really good example of how that affected their game development ability for casino games. There are some card games where before a game ends, you may need to have more than 25 events, card plays or bets or wagers, all recorded before the game is concluded. And if there was a 25 transaction limit in their ancestor limit, they were having to do workarounds around that, whereas lifting a limit would make development of games of their type far, far easier.
Yeah, and it's always been possible to work around it, but you know, you don't want developers, especially who are new and exploring the capabilities of a system, to have to jump through hoops like that. So, you know, we know that there is massive demand for this change for two reasons. One, it was the one thing I got asked about by more people than the question I got asked more than any other question over the preceding 2 years. And it was a lot of work to do, primarily because of stuff that we needed to untangle from BTC Core's code. But I also know, because when I tweeted about this just before Christmas, I think it's the single most liked and retweeted tweet that I've ever had in my life. So it's obviously been well received by the developer community.
So let's move to scaling. So one of our big messages with Bitcoin SV is that we've restored the original Satoshi vision to massively scale the blockchain, to in fact have unbounded scaling. It should have no limits to scaling. And so obviously that doesn't all happen overnight. You and your team have been working on a number of things to support that and testing it on the scaling test network. Tell us about some of the recent achievements that have been shown with the scaling test network.
So when you're attacking scaling, it's not always as direct as if we make this change, then we'll increase throughput by, you know, a certain percent. It's often that there are, you know, jobs that have to be done at certain times that block up other things, and, or, you know, just more efficient ways of unblocking pipelines. So you often don't actually see immediate effects from changes until later on, when you do further changes that kind of allow certain work to go through certain code pathways. So a lot of what you're seeing is, in terms of recent increases, a recent jump in the sustained rate from 6,000 to 9,000 per second. That was actually a result of about 3 different pieces of work that all just happened to come together. And in fact, a lot of the time we're unblocking scaling bottlenecks that no one's ever really encountered yet. We're unblocking some of them ahead of time. Had we not done some of the work that we've done before, when we released the scaling, increased the chain transaction limit, we would have actually encountered a bunch more roadblocks that would have stopped us from getting to that 9,000.
And I was just trying to ask you as the middle of your explanation to explain to the audience how you calculate sustained transaction throughput, because I know people got excited. I saw on Twitter the other day there was a huge block with millions of transactions in one block, and people use that to calculate a transit throughput rate based on just that single block. But that's not how you and your team do it. Can you tell us how you do it and why?
Yeah, so we want these numbers to be as unassailable as possible. And I guess that means we tend to err a little bit more on the conservative side. So we actually have, I think, 3 different sustained measurement rates. We measure over a period of 24 hours, I think 8 hours and 2 hours. And the reason for that is because, especially on the scaling test net, because we do deliberately do things that we know are going to break stuff on the scaling test net sometimes. It's part of the point. We often get have very long intervals between them and other unusual things, and that can really mess up the numbers. So we measure it deliberately over longer periods of time because that tends to smooth out the bumps there. We do have a peak transaction rate which we measure over the space of 2 blocks, but we actually measure it according to the time in between those 2 blocks, not as we don't. So that's why you see this particular block which it was an extraordinary achievement in terms of the number of transactions in it, but it was built up over the course of about 2 hours. So if you calculate the number correctly over that period of time, it's not quite the number that some people assumed. But I guess we've worked kind of hard to set the expectation that this is how we measure those numbers, so that when you start off achieving 1,000 transactions per second a couple of years ago, that was extraordinary in comparison to into what the software had been previously known to be able to do. When you compare that to 9,000. Well, that's a pretty impressive achievement. But the rate of increase is only going to grow. It's going to come exponential, and particularly as Terranode starts to sort of peak out from under the covers. Then we're not going to be talking 50% increases. We're going to be talking orders of magnitude increases as things go on.
Yeah, and for people who are interested in looking at this, you can go to our website, bitcoinscaling.io. That's bitcoinscaling.io, which keeps track of performance of the scaling test network. For example, showing the biggest block ever mined on the STN is almost 3 gigabytes, 2.9 gigabytes. But it also has stats, as Steve mentioned, tracking 2 8-hour and 24-hour average throughput. We think that's really important because businesses, when they're looking and talking to us about building on a blockchain, they don't care just about how big a single block was or how many transactions were in that single block. They care more about what is the sustained capacity of a network over a reliable period of time. And so that's why we approach it that way. So finally, Steve, let's talk about the topic a lot of people ask me about, and I'm sure you're about. What's happening with Terranode? We've discussed Terranode in the past as an enterprise class version of the Bitcoin SV node software. And people understand that we believe that is key to scaling even more. Can you tell our audience why building Terranode is important and where you are in the process and what they can expect?
Well, Terranode is important because the existing Bitcoin SV software is fundamentally monolithic. And that means that once you've unblocked all the links internally in it and squeezed all the efficiency that you can out of it, the only way to fundamentally scale is to put it on a bigger and more powerful machine. Now, the economies of scale don't work so well with bigger and more powerful machines. Once you hit a certain size machine, then they start getting more expensive to increase the power. But there's also a fundamental limit to how big a single machine can be. So with Terranode, we've basically re-architected everything. There's a lot of work in Bitcoin that's completely independent of other work that needs to be done in Bitcoin, and there's actually no reason why they need to be done on single machines. So we're following the model that's it's not at all uncommon with highly scaled applications these days, encapsulating the different bits of Bitcoin functionality in microservices, and those microservices can be sharded and replicated in a cluster, which means that fundamentally stops being a scaling limit. You just need to add more hardware or more bandwidth or whatever if you need more capacity. And the Bitcoin model works so beautifully with that, because the only reason you're going to want more capacity with Bitcoin as a node operator is because there's more revenue there on the table for you to take. So it's already paid for itself through transaction fees, and this is why the big blocks, large volume of cheaply priced transaction fees works so nicely.
Okay, can you tell us in the audience anything about what they can expect from Terranode this year?
You certainly will start hearing some noise about it in probably in the next couple of months. The team has been sort of on and off working on this over the last couple of years and getting the design ready, and some of that work has to sort of to backstitch for Genesis and things like that, as well as, you know, Enchain's own commercial offerings that we've been spending time on this last year. The project has been in full swing for a while, and we go through a very long period of testing, but we want that testing to be out there for the world to see. Change of platform and, you know, even Satoshi himself once expressed doubts about the wisdom of running more than one implementation of a node on a network at the same time because of the risk of consensus problems. So we'll be approaching that very carefully, but the Terranode Open Framework is something that we'll be able to describe in a little while. We're focusing on the tech itself before we get to the documentation and the explanatory materials. We'll get the tech right. Yeah, it will be visible. We are planning on actually building a separate test network to the scaling testnet, simply because we think that if we try to run Terranode scale tests on the scaling testnet, we'll probably break the scaling testnet and crush all Bitcoin SV nodes. But we'll make that testnet publicly available and visible, so that people can see what's going on there.
And can you clarify for our audience how open Terranode will be for usage by miners in the community?
Well, it'll be completely open. So it sort of, I suppose, it consists of the Terranode Open Framework and then a set of Terranode components that complete it. And of course, we'll release the whole lot as a package so that you don't have to worry about putting all the bits and pieces together. But the framework is designed so that components can be slotted in. We want Terranode to be, you know, a competitive framework so that others can come along and say, well, I can do a UTXO appliance better than you can. And they can release it as an open source if they like, or they can make it a commercial product if they want to. You know, I hope that people get involved in that and make the Terranode an area of fierce competition. We will be releasing a complete set of components along with the framework under the Open BSV license. You will have the option of running a complete Terranode without having to obtain commercial licensing, etc. But you should fully expect that there'll be enhancements and whatever available from various parties that will probably help with improving efficiency or offering better client services, etc. But the idea is it's meant to be modular.
Okay,
modular
great.
And extensible.
And keeping track of some of the questions that have come in. One of the questions was about Terranode timeline, and therefore I think you've answered that. Another question that came in, which I'll answer, is when's going to be the next course released from the Bitcoin SV Academy? And I am pleased to tell you that the next course should be released next month. We hope early next month. And it'll be an introduction to Bitcoin development for the developer stream. Remember, there's 3 streams that will eventually exist on Bitcoin SV Academy, which is a Bitcoin theory, Bitcoin development, and Bitcoin infrastructure. So look for our next online course to launch in March. All right, I'm going to ask my marketing manager, Martin, to see if there's any other questions we should take. Okay, there's one question about whether or not Bitcoin SV, including with Terranode, can scale to the capacity needed to support CBDCs, central bank digital currencies.
As it stands right now, I think that Bitcoin SV could probably support, several medium-sized countries running CBDCs. By the end of this year, I would hope that everybody will have confidence in Terranode's ability, and if that's the case, then there's no limit. We could run all global tests on Bitcoin. It's simply a matter of the transaction being there to feed the revenue to the miners to invest in the where required.
And one final question I'll post to you, wasn't really a question, but I saw commentary in the public chat, observing that nChain seems to spend a lot of its time building just plumbing or infrastructure for Bitcoin SV. Why isn't nChain more focused on having products and product development people?
Well, we are. It probably just hasn't been all that visible, but that is going to change over the course of this year. We've been focusing a lot on talking to the enterprise market and gaining a lot of market intelligence, business intelligence about what it is they need, what problems we can solve for them, etc. And that's fed into designing a product suite. Our product suite at this point isn't a kind of a neat looking consumer package type thing. It's a set of development components that allow us to be able to quickly deploy a solution for a complex business problem, making use of Bitcoin in the back end. You will definitely start to see bits and pieces about this platform that we put together over the course of this year. You'll probably start to see some random transaction volume appearing from time to time as we test various things out. We may or may not take credit for it when it happens, but you can expect a few bursts, I suppose. But the real answer to the question of why we've been quiet about it is because we've just been really, really focused on getting it right and understanding what Bitcoin can deliver to the business community. Our focus is not so much on the consumer application side because we think there are plenty of people who are addressing that area already, and they're doing it really well. We are a big company, and we've got the resources to be able to deal with some of the onerous requirements of working with financial institutions and regulated industries, etc., which aren't really aren't as big a burden, I suppose, when you're operating in the consumer space. So it makes sense for us to be focused in that area. But I hear you. We'll make a lot more noise this year.
Yeah, and what I would say to people watching out there is I think every developer, every entrepreneur, every supporter of Bitcoin SV can play different parts in a growing ecosystem. It takes a village. nChain has been very focused on the plumbing and infrastructure because that's necessary and helpful to help everyone else build whatever they want. And there are other companies that build infrastructure for Bitcoin SV as well. And it's not mutually exclusive. Everyone should do their part to build what they want to build. And we should be thankful to all of the infrastructure builders, nChain and other companies out there that are providing really the highway and the tools for everyone else to use. All right, Steve, thank you for joining me from Surrey. And you feel free to stick around, but I'm going to bring another guest onto the screen now. So everyone say goodbye to Steve Shadders. We'll be hearing lots more from him this year. Next, let's turn to Michael Hudson, one of my favorite conversationalists in the Bitcoin world. He is founder and CEO of Bitstocks, and he's going to be talking to us about various things. How you doing, Michael?
Very good, brother. How are you, Jimmy? Thank you for having me.
I am well. I'm still in Mexico. You are in London, I assume?
And it's very cold, yes.
Yeah, it's very cold. I have a beach out my window there, so tell us about the crowdfunding campaign you've been doing. So that's kind of the main news. I know it's closing soon, but you've already exceeded your goal. So talk to us about first why you decided to crowdfund for investment in Bitstocks and how it's going and how people can participate if they want.
Totally. Firstly, before I do that, I just want to say on Liz's transition from Bitstocks over to the Bitcoin Association, everyone at Bitstocks is super happy for Liz. Liz has been amazing at Bitstocks, delivered an incredible amount of value, and we know her wings are going to spread at the Bitcoin Foundation. So guys, you guys look after her. She's also an everyone.
Thank you.
And we look forward to supporting her still over at Bitstocks. So that's awesome. Crowdfund, right.
Yeah.
Now, the logic behind us doing a crowdfund was a couple of things. One is, as a company, we want to be for the people. We really do believe passionately we're building this technology for humanity. And we wanted to welcome the world in to join us in this mission, because the core foundation of the Bitstocks brand and mission is to utilize the Bitcoin technology to deliver transparency, to deliver new features to a very opaque industry, and actually really demonstrate what this technology is about in a user interface and experience that we're all familiar with. So we really want to get that message out in a public audience and bring new attention to the space, bring new attention to Bitcoin SV. And we knew that would be received contentiously, potentially. And if you see in the discussion boxes on the crowdfund campaign, there has been a lot of conversations around why Bitcoin SV, and you know, the typical comments that you do get around Bitcoin SV. But that really offered us an opportunity as a company to actually educate a new audience. And that's gone really, really well. So welcome people on board, as well as having an opportunity to get more exposure for Bitcoin SV in an industry that otherwise doesn't necessarily know too much about it. It gave us a chance to educate that community. And also, just because we're doing a crowdfund campaign, which is going great, I mean, we're now 184%, I believe, overfunded. We have 1,400 plus investors, £920,000 raised when our original target was only £500,000. And what's interesting is the demographic. So the demographic of our investors, in fact, I can actually bring up the figures.
And how long is the campaign running to? When's the end date?
There's 4 days remaining.
Okay.
So
4 days, audience. If you want to invest in Bitstocks, 4 days remaining. So
the age category is 28% 18 to 30, 35% 31 to 40-year-olds, and then 22% 41 to 50-year-olds. And we also have a really nice breakdown of male to female investors as well. The Crowdcube as a company actually said that these figures are way above the average. And to have that age demographic, to have such a high interest in a fintech company, it really does go to show, I think, and I feel, nature of the times, but also that people are really resonating with the message of transparency in finance. And now associate that message being only deliverable on the Bitcoin SV blockchain, it gives us an opportunity to educate a new market. So also doesn't mean that we're close to VCs, etc. Probably ties into maybe a little bit more of the conversation that we're going to speak about, but we're just putting finishing touches to some technology before we then open up the door to other such investors.
Got it.
But it's good. Thanks for asking.
Can we back up a second, and why don't you describe what your business model is now, and for especially with Gravity, and why you think that is appealing to investors from a crowdfunding perspective?
I think the easiest way to explain it is, if you're familiar with Monzo or Revolut, it's Monzo or Revolut on the blockchain. Okay? So we're going to provide a very similar experience to these services, these challenger bank services, and utilize the power and scale and transparency of the Bitcoin SV blockchain in order to show proof of solvency and proof of reserves and liabilities. And the argument really is, and the challenge will be, is if you have, say, £10,000 in your Gravity account, and you have £10,000 in your Monzo or your Barclays account, the fundamental difference is that you can verify that we have your capital, right? That's the fundamental difference. So that's the notion that we're going off right now. And that's what we're aiming to be able to start delivering towards the back end of this year. And right now, Gravity, we believe, best place in UK and Europe to buy and sell Bitcoin SV, with now, as of last week, incredibly deep liquidity as well. So we've got really tight spreads. We've got a great new liquidity provider. And those are the core services as to what Gravity is offering right now. But ultimately, it's transparency to the world of finance, and we aim at bringing that towards the back end of this year.
Yeah, can you tell us, the audience, anything about what they might expect to see in terms of progress or development in product features, expansion geographically from? We already have some questions about why it's not in Germany or the USA.
Okay, so in relation to other jurisdictions, that's going to be our agenda predominantly 2022. This year, we really want to focus on getting ahead of our technical development. So next month, we'll be releasing our iOS application. That's going to be a huge one for us. And we're adding a few more feature sets to our investment services to really smooth that process and make it a lot easier. We're looking towards adding new assets later on in the year as well. But right now, the biggest thing is get our mobile application out next month. And the huge drive towards our focus and our development focus is going to be implementing our solvency solution. So we've put the final touches in terms of our paper. Internally, we've now finished our paper. We've internally reviewed our paper of our Gravity particle swarm model, as well as our solvency model. I'll touch on the particle swarm model in a second. And then that's now going to be going through the legal review process, and then we'll kick off the peer review process, which naturally we'd love for you guys to be involved, N-Chain, etc., and Shadders. We can't wait to start getting, hopefully, great feedback, but also very much open and welcome the brutal feedback in order to make sure that we get this right, to show that this technology can actually bring a change to the world of finance and the world of banking. Now, the thing that we're most excited about really is the Gravity particle swarm model. So there was a couple of challenges around how do we bring transparency to the world of finance and deliver it on top of the blockchain while resolving some key fundamental things, because user experience is really important, right? So you've got a way of, okay, how do I have zero knowledge? So doing zero knowledge proofs, how do I prove that I own something without revealing the things it is that I don't want to reveal, right? And how do I do that without having a third party, an auditor, to come in? There's like, okay, well, I could put everything on chain and I can resolve that issue. But then if I put everything on chain, I think you, Jimmy, if you was a Gravity client, you'll be pretty upset that someone might be able to work out that you're a Gravity client, right? So just dumping everything on chain isn't necessarily the right way. Also, we then looked at wallet infrastructure, how we're utilizing transactions, and then we're thinking about data mapping. We're thinking about how the technologies can be used 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And that then shifted us towards, okay, well, there's a huge benefit towards being regulated. And it gives you the ability to do some things that if you was not regulated, you won't have the ability to do. So what we want to do, and what we've now written and typed up, I have the mathematics to back up with our paper, is if we really take the true premise of a Bitcoin, it's comprised of 100 million bits. So if you imagine a Bitcoin transaction coming into Gravity, it's like a firework. So it comes into Gravity, and as it comes into Gravity, it explodes. But Gravity tracks every single particle in its smallest denomination and keeps memory of it. And then I stack all of the disk of all the respective accounts. And then what we can do is, Jimmy, you come to London, you got your new Gravity Shiny debit card, and you want to go down to Selfridges and buy a new bag for 200 quid, right? Knowing you, probably £2,000, okay? So what you'll have is you have a swarm of particles remanifesting to the tune of the transaction it is that you want to form. On chain, it will look like chaos. To you, because you have all the timestamps chronologically ordered for you in your Gravity account, you will see the order within the chaos. So that's the thing that we are absolutely most pumped about, not just for us as a business, but also we think it's going to be a great demonstration of explosion of transactions on chain, and also demonstrating why SV and no other chain can actually do what it is that we need to do. And for me, going back to something Shadders was saying, when the Band-Aid got ripped off with the limitation, also the limitation of creativity expanded as well, right? And that allowed me to start manifesting and get really serious about something I've been thinking about for 3 years. But now we're building it. Awesome. And that's the huge benefit of basically the last year.
No limits means no limit on creativity. So we're really excited to see what happens with Bitstocks this year, and Gravity, good luck on the rest of your crowdfunding campaign. And with that, we'll go from you, Michael, to your former colleague, Liz Louw, who now works with us at Bitcoin Association. So she goes by Lizette or Liz, and she is based in South Africa, but she'll be working with us to create content that will be used to market and promote Bitcoin SV to mainstream business audiences, as well as other professional environments. We think that's really important because describing Bitcoin, especially the way we understand it, as more than just a reserve asset, digital gold, which has become the narrative, obviously, as BTC's price has risen. Describing its power to be so much more is difficult for average people who are outside of the crypto world to understand. So with that, we bring in Liz to talk to us about what she's going to be doing to help with the journey. How you doing, Liz?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks, Jimmy.
Okay. And where are you today?
I am close to Johannesburg. My sister lives in Johannesburg, read the press release, and she said she was very pleased to learn that I had moved in next door. No. But I live close enough.
Close enough. Yeah. Well, exciting. So tell the audience what your role is going to be here with Bitcoin Association, what they can expect to see from you in the coming months.
Well, what I've learned since I've joined this association is you've got all these talented individuals, including yourself and Brian, who are great with the outreach. You go out, you meet enterprise leaders, to make that connection point, to pique their interest, to just, get their curiosity started. But obviously, you cannot explain everything to them in one go.
Correct.
That is completely overwhelming. And as everyone who's worked in business to business sales knows, it's an extremely long process. Right. To do your own research. Of course, as a business leader, your responsibility is tremendous. And the risk you are taking in contracting any new service or product, it's huge. So you have to do your due diligence. And if that takes years, so be it. So my role is to fill in those gaps between the moments that you are able to reach out to them, so that when they want to know more, when they have time to do more research, that content is available for them in a digital format, in a way that suits their time constraints, that is specifically tailored to the questions that they need answered for their industry and their vertical.
Fantastic. And tell us a bit more about your professional background, how you got interested in Bitcoin and Bitcoin SV.
Gosh, for that one, I have to thank Michael Hudson. I've been writing for business-to-business services for multiple years in supply chain, in financial products, cloud services, family offices. And of course, it's always intriguing to learn about these new industries as a writer, because, again, I have to be the bridge between the technical folks and the business-minded folks who need to understand the implications of the technology. And And so I've enjoyed doing that. And then I landed a job with Bitstocks, and I went down the rabbit hole. And as you all know, you ain't coming back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I decided that this is the industry I'm staying in.
Okay, great. And last question, then we'll get on to our last guest. Tell us what Michael Hudson is like as a boss. Pretend no one's hearing you.
You know, he's a very family-minded guy, and so that really comes through, you know. And we, everyone who works in the company knows about his kids when their birthdays are happening, and so very, very down to earth. And you know, family is really important in the company, also for, you know, our families, for us to connect with our family. So very, I would say, a humane understanding of, you know, you're an employee, but you still have your family and you need to connect with them.
That's a great description, Michael. I would describe Michael Hudson as very human.
Yeah.
With that note, I want to welcome you to the Bitcoin Association family, and we look forward to working with you. And I know you'll still be working and collaborating with Bitstocks as part of your new role with Bitcoin Association, as well as for all the other companies out there building on BSV. If you've got stories to tell about your use cases that are really interesting to get out, contact us, and people like Liz will be helping get those stories out. So thank you very much, Liz.
Thank you.
That, to our final guest for today's virtual meetup. I'm really excited to bring him on. It's Adam Kling. You've known him to date as founder and CEO of Chronoverse, the maker of the Crypto Fights battle game. But geez, you got a new name, Adam. So welcome. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, we do have a new name, and I think it's a good story because you know, we started with Crypto Fights. And, you know, if you don't know about the project, we actually started as an Ethereum project. You know, long story short, won't go into it. I don't have a lot of time, but we kind of started getting a tickle in our ears about Bitcoin SV, why we were having problems with Ethereum. So what good timing. And we, as we were kind of wrapping our heads around what we can do with this kind of technology on Bitcoin SV, is where we came up with the name Chronoverse. And it was the god of time with metaverse. And when we kind of put that together, it was really kind of to put a name to what we were thinking we can do into the future. And then, you know, as time goes on and developing Crypto Fights, we started to think about more about esports and how the technology that we're creating custom for Crypto Fights can be used for many other games, especially with competitive games. Now, I played a lot of competitive games. There's a lot of cheating, and there's a lot of just really like proprietary silos of games. Like you go into a game, they have their own system, and then you do another game and you just have no idea what's going on. And then esports, you know, you have lots of money that can be on the line with this. So, you know, forward-thinking people will see, well, what about corruption? What about developers putting like a 50 millisecond delay on a player, you know, with $1 million tournament? I mean, there's all these things that I believe will happen as esports continues to grow into multi-billion-dollar markets. So when we kind of started thinking about this, you know, our name Chronoverse, is that it really didn't do its justice on esports. It was really kind of a technology company, but we really need to be more digestible for just regular gamers that don't even know what blockchain is, to all the way to the game developers that do need to have a new kind of way to monetize their game, as well as like a new platform experience, because you have Google Play, you have iOS, you have Steam, and various other ones that are all really the same. You know, they take 30% of everything that you do, and you're limited to what you can do, and you're in a walled garden. We want to create a new experience, and so that's why we rebranded into Fix Gaming. That will cater both towards the gamers, just like Steam does, as well as to game developers that can integrate our technology onto the platform. But meanwhile, Bitcoin SV is really just our tech stack. You know, it's not something that we want to start with. It's something that is just how it works. So it's really blockchain behind the curtain than in front of the curtain at this point.
Yeah, it's your plumbing, right? Your infrastructure.
Exactly. And so that comment earlier about, you know, why don't they focus more on products? Well, we need the plumbing to create the products on top of it. And, you know, we actually have to even still create more stuff that's custom for what we're doing. And especially in our industry, when we think of high performance gaming, where, you have Fortnite or Warzone with Call of Duty, where you have just, I don't know, billions of things happening in three-dimensional space, that we have to kind of come up with some custom stuff. So the ancestor limit was extremely important to us. David Case, our architect, was having to do workarounds with that, with payment channels. And now we can go back to this and start thinking about, well, with CryptoFights, every move and decision is a transaction versus kind of pushing it all into one transaction. So there's a lot of really cool stuff with that plumbing that InChain is doing that is very beneficial to companies like ours.
Yes, plumbing can be a win.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'll say to
Absolutely.
you in the world. I think you have something to show us. Is that right?
Yeah, there is a video of CryptoFights, and I can't remember, is Martin, do I need to add that in there? Because I just came in. Can you play that?
There we go. We're going to, when it's ready, we'll show it.
There we go. So this is a more recent version of CryptoFights. There's still a lot more improvements. We're constantly updating the UI from feedback, and one of the big new additions is this dungeon mode, which is essentially a single player mode that you can go and play for free. So we don't ask you for any money or Bitcoin SV or anything up front, and you actually play against NPCs, and those NPCs will drop weapons or loot, and those loot items are actually going to be Bitcoin SV tokens. So, one of the presentations that we did back in London, I think it was February, was about creating our own kind of item protocol standard. So this is kind of the start of that with CryptoFights, is that once we start, creating these items, we have a portal that you'll see soon where you can actually go in there and look at your items, and then a marketplace that will be coming soon where you can actually speculate, you can trade, and you can sell. So, all that effort in a game can actually be worthwhile. As you can see here, with CryptoFights, we have combat logs, we have new characters in there. As you see with some of the skills, there's in the skill tree, as I'll see if I can fast forward on leveling up a little bit, we have a skill tree that offers the player a lot of different options on kind of what to invest in and how to defeat your opponent. We have also a multiplayer mode, and that's kind of where the real exciting part happens that is not in this video, that you'll be able to use a credit card or ACH to deposit into your account balance with us. And we essentially use a stable coin, kind of custom to our own system. And that stable coin allows you to actually go into these multiplayer battles, a 1v1, and you would pay an entry fee. And it could be as little as, a quarter, 50 cents, up to 5, 10, and even more, depending on the tournament that you can play. And the winner will get that prize pool minus a small percent that we take for an operation fee. So the ability of our platform is not really just the kind of the plumbing, but it's also this cash in and cash out functionality for the same way an app store would be used. So every user that comes onto the fixed platform and plays, let's say, our game, is the same customer that can go and play the next game that comes onto the platform. So we're really creating a new app store for competitive games, or specifically esports games. It doesn't mean it has to be turn-based. I'm looking forward to getting other types of games onto the platform. I'm in talks with some really amazing games right now, and it's just going to be kind of a matter of tech discovery to see what's the best way and how much do we integrate some of the blockchain functions into that. But like I said before, CryptoFights is custom through and through to utilize Bitcoin SV down to actually how the game operates. We developed off the Run platform, so even like when I click that attack here in the video, that's actually using a jig on that system to enact that skill in the game. And there's even where who has the ability to take their turn. It's all essentially smart contracts on Bitcoin SV at this point. So the things that we can do with Bitcoin SV are really limitless. It's just a matter of building them as we go through what games need and what kind of level of transparency or immutability of data that the game needs. But when we release CryptoFights, which should be very soon, we'll be creating a product called the Data Explorer that you can actually see all the moves that were ever taken by anybody at any point in time. And that is somewhat new in the sense is that, we're not requesting data from an API like happens now on like a tracker site. We're actually reading it from the blockchain. So by doing this is that we don't have to worry about storing any of this data. We don't have to worry about it getting corrupted or altered, but we can actually take that data and render it back through our game engine and recreate that game at any point in time. So I like to say, watch out Twitch, because we're going to be creating a new product called the Match Replay that can essentially on demand render a game that happened in the past, or as well as stream a live game, as you can see here. So the platform itself is going to offer a lot. It's going to be a destination site. And I'm really excited because this year, 2021, we spent a lot of time. We still have some more bugs to get through, and we still have some more things to do at the cashier side. But we're getting very, very close into being able to launch this to where people can actually be actually a professional gamer and make money gaming. So
that's exciting, and it's really exciting to see how far CryptoFights itself as a game has come since I first started seeing it with you. Let's talk quickly about Fix a bit more, and the Fix infrastructure platform. Can you give the audience one or two examples of what an indie developer or a big AAA game studio could do with using your Fix platform that they could not do without it?
Sure. So the main value that we're offering for developers, and I'm just screen sharing the new site that just got launched today, is that we really give them a new way to monetize. So if you think of the app stores now, is that you're essentially limited to either in-app purchases or a straight sale of the game. And they typically trend towards the freemium model. So let's try to get as many people to download the game as possible. Let's get them hooked. And then let's put pain points in the game. So if you've ever played some of those games where they limit how much you can do in a certain amount of time, a lot of the farming games do that. They make you try to buy gems, and then it's gotten bad to where there's so many things going on that you almost don't even know that you're being kind of the game's against you. like you'll never be able to really progress through the game without spending money. So it's kind of gotten that way for a lot of developers, and that's been the trend for many, many years. And we're offering a new way essentially for their game to monetize. So instead of doing all that freemium model, we're offering them a competitive model. So as you saw with CryptoFights, is that I put $1 in, you put $1 in, and we go and battle it out. The winner gets to take 90% of that pot, and 10% goes to us, the app store. Well, we actually take some of that percent and send it to the game developer. And so if you think every single round that's happening, they're making money at that. So now they don't really have to lock down the game anymore. Now it's about competition. If you think about any of the traditional sports, boxing, baseball, football, soccer, any of that, they can just say, get good at the game and play, form a team. And then they can constantly do that. And it could be for low stakes or it could be for high stakes. It's up to you. And you could play in the unranked mode without money to train, and then move over to the ranked mode to get, to really test your skills. I don't think that esports in the future, this is kind of my big vision about esports, is that it's not going to be for the best of the best. It's not going to be the Olympics that we all watch. It's going to be similar to how online poker is, that anyone can go after work, play online poker, and win. They can lose, and they can clock out and go to bed. Same thing with gaming. Now, the platform goes kind of above that, because not only are we offering this new way to monetize because of Bitcoin SV, is that when you're making a move, it's essentially a transaction. But when you sign that transaction with your private key, and one of the things that the users probably won't know is that you actually are operating a Bitcoin wallet when you play the game. And so when you're writing those transactions out, we're actually, when you register to play for money, we're going to put you through a KYC process to get your true identity. And what we do is we now can link your true identity to your actual, private key or transactions that you emit out. So if you start to cheat, do anything weird, just something that's not right, we actually have a breadcrumb of everything you've ever done. And so if it comes down to that you're colluding, you're having your friends go bet on another site where you throw the match, if you start to use a client-side cheat like an aimbot, or you want to see through walls or some kind of memory hack you're doing of the game, we'll probably see that in the data. You know, you're risking cheating now to your true identity to where you'll get banned. And actually, with us being a member of ESIC, which is the Esports Integrity Committee, they actually can refer for criminal prosecution because you are actually committing fraud. You're breaking our terms of service. And so you're actually kind of stealing money away from people at that point. So we're kind of making this safe harbor platform for competitive gaming in that aspect. Now, another big need for the developer is that, you know, when you put a game on an app store, you're one of like a billion apps that no one will ever see unless you spend a lot of money to get eyeballs. So we're going to actually create kind of these crossover tournaments to where, let's say it's a Crypto Fights elimination tournament and the top 3 people get to go to game number 2. Well, that game number 2 that we set into this big tournament could be an opportunity for a new game to get discovered. And if we do that every day, every month, every year, we have a lot of opportunity for these games to actually, you know, get seen and get played. And it could be, you know, games that people have played for years and now they just, you know, get stuck in this tournament. Or it could be that I have never played this game and now I'm forced to compete in this tournament and I have to do really good. So it's similar to kind of how a triathlon would work, but without maybe training beforehand. So those 3 things are really the big needs that we've seen from developers that we offer. Additionally, our platform that I mentioned before is going to offer this destination portal where you can go and see every single move that's ever happened. So you can go and search under someone's profile or even your own and see everything you've done, every move you've done. And so you can drill down into everything that's ever happened. And that's really kind of new. It's because it's, you know, they can only save some of this data for so long on the cloud, and we're not doing that now. Like, we pay for it when the transaction happens, essentially. So and also that match replay functionality, the marketplace, and the items. So it's really kind of I think a new world that we want to create for competitive games, and creating really a new economy for how all this can operate.
Exciting, very, very exciting. One of the questions that was asked is, what's the URL of this domain name? It's Fyx with a Y, Fyx. Gaming.com, fyxgaming.com. You can check it out now. And so let's end with just a couple of audience questions, because I know we are running long on time a little bit. So one of the questions is, how many transactions would a game, or I say could a game, create in, say, 10 minutes, the block interval average?
Yeah, and that's going to, again, kind of go with what Steve was talking about, is that as we're starting to roll out, and I know we're, I think, in beta now with that, and we're going to be testing that with Tal. We're going to start testing that out and see kind of how Crypto Fights operates. So we can have kind of all these people playing different battles, you know, emitting transactions, and kind of see how that works. Now, when we start getting into kind of the new frontier, like the 3D gaming and all that, I kind of foresee, and I could be wrong, that we'll probably have to kind of look at payment channel again to kind of condense the amount of transactions. But, you know, the sky's really the limit. I mean, these games that are in the mass market, a small game could have hundreds of thousands of people playing it. A large game like Fortnite, it's ridiculous. So, I mean, the amount of transactions, I don't know, but it could be a lot. It's not going to be a little, you know, because we position the company to not be what I see in the blockchain gaming sector, to where you need crypto to even start. And most players don't need crypto to play their favorite game. And we want to be the same way. We want to be very standard, you know, what they're used to. And that's why we have, you know, credit card deposits, same way with an app store. So you have transactions from the actual game activity. You have transactions from the items. It really depends on how the game operates. So I would say the sky's the limit. I mean, it could be millions, it could be billions. As we add games to the platform, I mean, there's some big games that are interested. I'm talking to one of them in a couple weeks, but it's really kind of to look at, like, how will this work, you know, because this is a brand new thought for them. Ubisoft is poking around. They're poking around on Ethereum right now. So we have the opportunity to say, well, hey, wait a minute. You know, you can't do microtransactions on Ethereum right now. You know, we left an ecosystem that there's a lot of people that have items, and they have they can't transfer them because the item's worth less than the transfer fee. Yeah. So there's a lot of, you know, the kind of the run up in the blockchain gaming was all Ethereum focused. And we're really the company on Bitcoin SV that's kind of promoting, like, hey, look, we can do a heck of a lot more, faster, cheaper, better. And that's what I can't wait, because there's so much opportunity to really just crush the competition in that sense, because of their technical limitations of the blockchain.
Yeah. One other question: are these transactions all on chain?
So for CryptoFights, yes. We are currently on like our private chain right now for testing, and then we're going to roll out to testnet and do some more testing there. And then when we roll out to mainnet, our plan is to actually have our cashier system up and running, so you can actually play for real. So that, we'll announce that when that's happening, and as well, if you join our Telegram group or get on our email list, we'll be sending out information on when we're doing testing periods, and are they going to be on testnet or mainnet.
Okay, and then I'll ask this question because obviously I've known you for a couple of years now as you've gone through this journey. Tell your audience what has been the experience and the time it's taken to get this vision.
Yeah, it's taken longer than I had hoped and I thought. This is hard. I mean, this is hard work, and it kind of mirrors what you said earlier, Jimmy, about it takes time to really develop a lot of this out. When we started, we saw a way to do it, but the actual process of doing it creates all of these other things. And David Case can attest to this, is that we've had to really solve a lot of the problems that just blockchain in general introduce into what's traditional now. Like for example, forgot password. Everyone's used to using forgot password, but there's a lot of people I know on InChain, and Jimmy, you probably know, that are trying to figure out what is the easiest way to do that for a user. And so we've been kind of thinking about things like that, where we don't want, your whole thing to just poof if you forget and have a party weekend and can't remember your password. So, there's just a lot of things that start coming up like that. And also, we've kind of gotten very ambitious in our offerings. I mean, we did start with the game, but we saw a heck of a lot of opportunity, at the esports industry. And so that added on a lot of that. I mean, we could have just said, well, we're just going to put out a game and you're going to play it and you're going to like it, and that's going to be that. But we really wanted to help Bitcoin SV and get more games and using this technology. But I also think there's a heck of a lot more things that we can do different than what traditional gaming is doing now. They're all poking around like the metaverse, but they're all stuck in, like AWS and cloud server and all that, but they aren't where the Bitcoin SV ecosystem is at mentally. And so actually getting that idea out into the market, getting feedback and finding that product market fit is really kind of where we're at right now. Like we're just about to launch our game. We're going to start, getting developers interested, start working with them, getting them on the platform, getting our game catalog, increased and really just scale at that point. And that's hard work. So, I mean, any entrepreneur out there, it's definitely, I mean, the way that we've evolved from kind of a game to a platform it's just kind of happened that way. But I mean, be prepared for a lot of hard work. it's never ending for sure.
And I'm glad you shared that experience, because it is a lot of hard work. And what I would tell the people watching and everyone in the Bitcoin SV ecosystem is that I predict the scale of development, or the speed of development, excuse me, will pick up much more rapidly, because now there are a lot more plumbing tools, infrastructure tools, not just from nChain, but many companies and developers who have contributed across the world to the resources that everyone's using. That had to be built, especially as Bitcoin was being restored to it's closer to its Satoshi protocol. A lot of that is there now. More still has to be developed, but I think for companies like a Fix Gaming and so many others across the world, the ability to develop products more quickly is going to pick up.
Yeah, and Jimmy, let me add one more thing too. Just so in the market, everyone, like I said, is on Ethereum in the blockchain gaming industry, right? And they are creating their own layer 2 solutions to still use Ethereum. And so like that has been happening for so many years now that they're kind of stuck in their path at that point. And so we are really blazing kind of a new path here, just within kind of the gaming industry, or the blockchain gaming industry, I should say. So, I mean, there's just a heck of a lot of work to do, and people are asking about the price, or saying stuff about price and all that, and I think that it's because we're building like real things. When you look at the stuff that's going on in Ethereum, I mean, the real development on there is all going to layer 2. I mean, it's like becoming less and less blockchain at that point. So there really is a big difference in what we're building here, and it is complex, but it's also easy in the sense of that you just got to go through the motions, get the stuff built, and move on and release it to market.
That's a great summary, and I'm glad you also have the long vision to build something that will stand the test of time and have real utility to both the game players and game developers and companies out there. So thank you for joining us, Adam. I'm very excited to do this on the day of your announcement of your rebrand. And with that, I will close out this virtual meetup. We are glad you could join us. There's so much happening both behind the scenes as well as things you're seeing publicly in the Bitcoin SV ecosystem. Remember that we're trying to build a global infrastructure for the most efficient payment system, as well as most efficient distributed data network in the world. Lots of companies have found us, more and more every day we're talking to, and I predict this year will be a big year in the growth and development of Bitcoin SV. With activity, you're going to start seeing more and more on-chain from some really creative and powerful business use cases. So keep up to date with us at bitcoinassociation.net. That's bitcoinassociation.net if you want to follow us at Bitcoin Association. With that, I wish you a good day, evening, or morning, wherever you are, and thanks for watching.
Technology has given you more power than anyone before you. But it's not only about technology, it's about what you can do with it. That led us to create the Bitcoin SV Academy, online education courses to help you learn Bitcoin blockchain technology. See what you can do with that power and prepare for careers with this new technology. Be ready for the future of blockchain with Bitcoin SV.